Promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar and Lomé, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Political parties announced a massive rally in Bamako on Friday to demand an immediate return to constitutional rule.
And we have noted that for some time now, a new threat has been looming over democratic criticism in our countries, dearly acquired at the cost of the blood of other Malians. The parties have mobilized and decided to say yes to democracy.
The 5th West African Episcopal Conference gets underway in Dakar with a focus on security and rights issues. Reaction trails Ghana's President Mahama's decision to dismiss appointees who failed to declare their assets latest today, May 7.
So in the first instance, we commend him for taking that bold step. However, since he added that by the end of today, those who do not comply, people who do not comply would not have their positions anymore. It's a good thing.
And UNICEF ranks Nigeria first on a global scale as the country with the highest number of malnourished children. Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Cole with Newslink.
A pleasant welcome to our listeners across the sub-region and beyond. Newslink opens in the Central Sahel region, particularly Mali, as tension escalates between political parties and the military over the dissolution of political parties. To pressure the government, the parties are calling for a new demonstration in Bamako on Friday, May 9. The protest will denounce their dissolution and demand an end to the military transition. As a reminder, their meeting last Saturday at the Bamako Cultural Center was prevented by hundreds of supporters of the ruling military who stormed the building. Abdullahi Hassan has the details in this report.
To maintain pressure on the government, which dissolved the political parties a week ago, political party leaders are calling for street protests this time. The rally is scheduled to take place this Friday at 2 p.m. on Independence Boulevard. It was at this same location in the center of the Malian capital that social actors demonstrated for several months in 2020, leading to the fall of late Ibrahim Boubacar Keita's regime. This time, the political parties are demanding an end to the transition and a return to constitutional order. Ibrahim Tamega is one of the leaders of the Convergence Party, which is one of the organizers of the demonstration.
And we have noted that for some time now, a new threat has been looming over democratic criticism in our countries, dearly acquired at the cost of the blood of other Malians. Why, after having taken the institutions of the Republic hostage, do they still want to assassinate what little remains of democracy? The parties have mobilized and decided to say yes to democracy, yes to individuals and collective freedoms, and therefore no to attacks on individuals and collective freedoms.
According to a well-informed source, this gathering of political parties could be banned and political activities suspended this Wednesday upon a decision of the Council of Ministers.
Abdullahi Hassan with that report. Still in Mali, the Supreme Court will begin an in-depth financial audit of political parties despite the current social climate. Prime Minister General Abdoulaye Maigai, who requested the forensic audit on Monday, suspects a lack of transparency in the financing and use of funds by political parties. Eventually, political parties could be excluded from the political arena or prosecuted by the state. Christopher Aticho reports.
In his letter of request to the Supreme Court dated Monday, May 5, the Prime Minister requested the country's highest court to conduct a comprehensive audit of the finances and management of political parties. This investigative mission will cover the period from July 2000, when the political party's charter was promulgated, to May 2025. The Malian Prime Minister General Abdoulaye Maiga, also Minister of Territorial Administration, expressed a doubt about the transparency of political party financing and the use of funds. The audit commissioned by the Prime Minister's office aims to shed light on the issue. Another objective of the Supreme Court review is to assess the compliance of political parties' financial operations with applicable legal provisions. The review will also focus on the transparency of financial flows and the justification of expenditures. Ultimately, parties could be excluded from the political arena and even face legal proceedings for questionable financing. This audit of political party finances over a 25-year period comes amid a tense political climate. Political parties whose dissolution has been announced by the government are stepping up protests to demand an end to the military transition and respect for democracy.
A report by WADR's Bamako correspondent Aliyu Cham, voiced by Christopher, a teacher. In neighboring Niger, several military officers scheduled to retire in 2025 may be retained in their positions within the army. This decision is reportedly driven by the country's ongoing security crisis. Nigerian authorities assert that it is essential to mobilize all available soldiers to address the prevailing security threats. However, the decision has sparked anger among some members of the military and among the general population. In contrast, civil society organizations in the country have expressed support for the measure. Two notable figures from these organizations, Abibu Isakal, a member of the Niger Standing Front, and Abdurrahman Adey Hassan, national coordinator of the Niger New Movement, have publicly responded in this recent development.
This decision comes to point nommé. It comes to point nommé because it is truly for the homeland. I believe that these military personnel who should retire must make these sacrifices like any other Nigerian. We, who are civilians, today, we are also soldiers, and every Nigerian in his soul, in his heart, and wherever he is, he must consider himself a soldier because we are in a context of war and insecurity. And even military personnel who have retired, who are still fit, should be called to serve the homeland. This is really reasons that shouldn't even be put forward for why they want to keep them in their positions. They should have listened to the people from the start by appointing civilians, technocrats. Their role is to wage war, to preserve our territory, and to maintain peace and security throughout the Nigerian territory. This is not the time for them to come and tell us no. These are really reasons that don't hold water.
Abibu Isaka and Abdurrahman Adey Hassan are two notable civil society actors in Niger.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Right here in Senegal, the 5th West African Episcopal Conference continues this Wednesday. More than 150 archbishops and bishops from 16 countries are gathering in Dakar for a general assembly, during which issues of justice and peace in the region will also be discussed. The election of a new pope, which commences today at the Vatican, may also be briefly discussed. Some notable candidates from the continent will be in the conclave. Sankule Janko completes the story.
During the opening ceremony at the Grand National Theatre in Dakar, Monsignor Alexis Touabli Yulo, president of the United Episcopal Conferences of West Africa, called for true peace in Africa, which, according to him, can only be based on justice. Justice is not only for the elites, but above all for the people.
Et l'Église en Afrique de l'Ouest veut et doit y contribuer.
And the Church in West Africa wants and must contribute to this. Certainly, peace comes from God, but peace does not descend from heaven as a finished product or a ready-to-wear garment. No, peace is rather like a loincloth, a beautiful loincloth that we must weave together, each one contributing their own thread. We, the archbishops and bishops of West Africa, have decided to contribute the specific thread of the church that, let us not forget, is an expert in humanity.
Other problems plaguing the region will also be addressed, including the security crisis that undermined peace and fractured ECOWAS with the withdrawal of several member countries. This West African Episcopal meeting, which concludes next Sunday, comes amid the election of a new pope. The bishops will briefly discuss the issue, as Africa has some 20 candidates.
Sankule Jankofied that report. Meanwhile, Nigeria has received another negative rating on human security as it now ranks as the first country on the continent with the highest number of malnourished children. The country also ranks second globally according to the United Nations Children's Fund data published on Tuesday. The country's situation is worsened by a combination of factors, including insecurity and climate change. Imo Edit has more in the following report.
An estimated 2 million children in Nigeria are suffering from severe acute malnutrition, accounting for the second highest number of stunted children worldwide. The survey indicates a national prevalence rate of 32% of children under 5, adding that only 2 out of every 10 children affected currently have access to treatment. It further explains that states in northern Nigeria were the most affected by stunting and wasting, the 2 forms of malnutrition. UNICEF informs that 7% of women of childbearing age also suffer from acute malnutrition. This situation meant that only 17% of babies were exclusively breastfed during their first 6 months of life, as data suggests poor exclusive breastfeeding culture over the past decade. Just 18% of children aged 6 to 23 months are fed the minimum acceptable diet. The United Nations Children's Fund says malnutrition is a direct or underlying cause of 45% of all deaths of under 5 children. While calling for immediate intervention to reduce the number, UNICEF warns that high rates of malnutrition pose significant public health and development challenges for the country.
Imo Edit with that report. In Ghana, reactions are trailing President John Mahaman's plan to dismiss government appointees who failed to declare their assets latest today, Wednesday, May 7. One of the institutions reacting to this decision is the Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International, which calls for stricter sanctions against government appointees who missed President Mahaman's deadline for declaring their assets. President Mahama recently announced that appointees who failed to meet the March 31, 2025 deadline will forfeit 3 months of their salaries, which will be donated to the Ghana Medical Trust Fund. He further stated that those who still fail to declare their assets after a grace period ending May 7 should consider themselves dismissed. We will bring you details of this development during the later parts of this news edition. But still in Ghana, President Mahama has inaugurated the Accelerated Export Development Advisory Committee, announcing measures to address the challenges facing the country's export sector, including high logistics costs and lengthy port clearance times. President Mahama said the newly established body, which got active on Monday, would guide policy and coordination efforts aimed at strengthening the country's export performance and increasing earnings from non-traditional exports. Here is an extract of President Mahama's speech.
Ghana has the potential to substantially increase our exports of garments across Africa and to the world. Through targeted incentives and strategic partnerships, we will scale up our local production and participation in this value chain. Our 24-hour economy strategy will complement this ambition by developing focused value chains in cassava, tomato, palm oil, pharmaceuticals, textiles and garments, and industrial machinery. With effective implementation, we are confident that by 2034, Ghana can reduce the national unemployment rate from 14.7% as it currently stands to under 5%. No export strategy can succeed without robust logistics and trade infrastructure. Ghana's exporters face some of the highest logistics costs in West Africa, and our export clearance times exceeds the regional averages. We will therefore modernize our ports, revamp the Volta Lake Transport Company, develop the Mpakadam Port, and operationalize the Boankra Inland Port, and expand the cold chain infrastructure to support our fisheries and horticultural sectors.
Ghana's President John Mahama there speaking. You are still listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Political parties announced a massive rally in Bamako on Friday to demand an immediate return to constitutional rule. The 5th West African Episcopal Conference gets underway in Dakar with a focus on security and rights issues. UNICEF ranks Nigeria first on a global scale as the country with the highest number of malnourished children. Still ahead in the news, WAEC Liberia office warns students against camping and payment of any illegal fees ahead of regional exams. We also have a press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR News and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Ahead of the 2025 regional exams, the West African Examination Council Liberia office warns students and parents against camping and payment of any illegal fees. The head of WAEC Liberia office emphasized the importance of proper preparations and the safety of students at the date for the West African Senior School Certificate Examination approaches. As WADR's Ibrahim Parker reports, concerns have been raised about camping, a practice where students gather in one location to study overnight before the exams.
The regional head, Dali Boto, discouraged this practice, warning parents that allowing their children to leave home for extended periods not only poses safety risks, but could also lead to disqualification. Schools found in camping will be sanctioned. According to Boto, students need a secure and safe environment, most especially at home, to prepare for an independent examination.
When they talk about why they can feel if you just rubbish, they take money from Canaanites and they say they will go and make ways for them. They will bring heaven on earth for them. We want to say here that YF is not in the business of collecting flexibility fee. Don't pay any money to anyone before, during, and after the exam. If anybody insists that you should pay money to them, let us, and then we will take the appropriate action.
The regional head touched on several issues, among them the financial exploitation known as flexibility fees by individuals who claim to assist students with exam preparation. Concerning the role of examiners, Dade Boto urged vigilance, integrity, and professionalism during the examination process. With the examination just 2 days away, WAEC says it remains committed to ensuring a fair and secure environment for all participants. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
And to hear of related story, authorities in Lomé, the Togolese capital, erected security parameters Tuesday and cautioned the population against consuming suspicious fish. This is because during the weekend, a large quantity of dead fish was found in the stormwater retention basin in a neighborhood in Lomé. Here's Francis Boniface with additional details.
These dead fish were found in the Third Man Retention Basin, a neighborhood in downtown Lomé. They were removed from the basin and incinerated by a joint team of security operatives, environment, and health officials. To protect the population, the Togolese authorities erected a security cordon to prevent any attempt to retrieve these dead fish. An investigation has been opened to determine the origin of this fish. Pending the results of the investigation, samples are being taken for toxicological and chemical analysis to determine the cause of this mass fish death in this basin. The government is calling on the population to be extremely vigilant and avoid consuming fish of questionable quality, which could potentially end up on the market. The authorities say they are counting on civic-mindedness and scrupulous adherence to this awareness message to avoid any health complications that could be detrimental to life.
Francis Boniface with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's now join Sankule Janko for a review of the local dailies in the Gambia.
Let's begin with the Standard newspaper today. And the lead story on the Standard newspaper reads, Group 6 permit to protest over Jammeh's assets. Well, since the Republic uncovered an investigative story which showed some sort of corruption and abuse of office relating to the former President Yahya Jammeh's assets, there's been a lot of talks in the Gambia. Now, a particular group of Gambians have seek permit from the police to stage a protest. This other story is related to the same development, and it reads, Gambia participates calls for release of full list of buyers of Jammeh's assets. This other one also reads, UDP counters minister over Jammeh's assets sales. This other one reads, the operators demand clarity over pilgrims' accommodation after flight changes. Let's see what the other newspapers have for today, and we move on to the Foria. Interestingly, Foria also's lead story is related to the sale of Jammeh's asset because it reads, lawmaker seeks inquiry into sale of Jammeh's assets. This particular lawmaker is the majority leader of the National Assembly of the Gambia, who's no other than Billy J. Tunkara. 2 suspected migrant smugglers arrested in failed backway attempt. ECOWAS Parliament meets to discuss cost of air transportation. Let's take a look at the final newspaper for the day, and that is the Point newspaper. And the lead story on the Point newspaper reads, VP Jallo launches a $2 million aid project, urges transparency. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies today.
Thanks to Sankule Janko for the press review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment of Newslink takes us back to Ghana, where reactions are trailing President Mahama's plans to dismiss government appointees who failed to declare their assets latest today, Wednesday, May 7. One of the institutions reacting to this decision is Ghana Integrity Initiative, the local chapter of Transparency International, which calls for stricter sanctions against government appointees who miss the president's deadline for declaring their assets. Our guest is Mary Adar, Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. She spoke in an exclusive interview with WADR's Accra correspondent, Nadi Ditete.
On the issue of the president's statement, for us, we would say that is a way to go. A way to go because we have not had some of these directives in the past. So in the first instance, we commend him for taking that bold step. For us, we would have believed that the president's discretionary powers then places him in the position to have taken even more drastic action in the first instance, to serve as a big symbol or a sign that future occurrence of non-compliance will not be tolerated. However, since he added that by the end of today, those who do not comply, people who do not comply would not have their positions anymore. It's a good thing. And we say it's a good thing because we haven't had many of such happen in the past. However, as much as we are commending, it's now in our place to also ensure that we are monitoring to see how compliance is effected.
There are those who have said that the president has been lenient, too lenient for that matter, especially when he had said...
Too lenient. He should have sacked all of them, and that is to show that he will not tolerate such behavior in the future. But then we consider that the less than 48 hours deadline is also a good sign. But then we don't understand why anybody would receive an order that is given publicly by the president on record for every Ghanaian to hear, would decide that they would not comply. It means that we need to pay attention because the president is the ultimate power of state, and he gives directives and his appointees decide that they would not take them. It beats the imagination that anybody would do that. Because we say so because you should know what you have and what you do not have.
And speaking of assets being declared as well, but one of the things that were displayed there yesterday was the president handing over 2 gifts, which came in the form of vehicles to the state because it exceeds the 20,000 cedis threshold that they have set for themselves.
I believe that is in the right direction because we're talking about issues around declaration of assets. And so if the president has put a certain frame within which his employees and himself must operationalize, and then that operationalization that gives us the opportunity to know what exactly people are getting. So above 20,000, certainly every vehicle in Ghana today may be above 20,000. I'm not sure there is a vehicle that is less than that. So it is a good sign that the president discloses his gift. If he wanted to keep it, but he has put restrictions to that when that happens, you should declare it and give it to the state. So that is a good thing that the president has shown a signal that everybody else should follow.
Mary Ada is the executive director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. Here comes Sankule Janko in studio with the latest sporting developments. Good afternoon, Sankule.
Good afternoon, Augustine Cody. Well, I'm sure you very well know what I want to talk about, even though you might not be pleased with it. But in sports, Inter Milan have secured a place in the UEFA Champions League final after a dramatic 4-3 win in the return leg and a 7-6 aggregate victory against Catalan giants Barcelona on Tuesday night. Alessandro Bastoni was his hero as he scored the winner in the 18th minutes of the extra time following a 3-3 draw in the 90 minutes in front of a jam-packed San Siro stadium. The tie is described as the best UEFA Champions League semi-final tie in history. Well, today, meanwhile, all road leads to Parc des Princes in the French capital, Paris, as Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, welcomes Arsenal in the return leg of the second semi-final match of the UEFA Champions League tonight. PSG are the favourites going into the match tonight, having won the first leg away 1-0 in Arsenal. The question is, will this encounter between Arsenal and PSG match yesterday's game? Well, we will find out tonight and keep you up to date tomorrow.
Congratulations to Inter Milan for reaching finals.
Congratulations. Congratulations to them.
What do you make of tonight's game?
I don't know. It's going to be a very tricky one because just like we saw yesterday, it was tricky. At some point, everyone thought Barcelona was going to go through when Rafinha scored that goal. But football is so complicated. The next thing you know, Inter Milan torn the tie. So today as well, it could go either ways. Of course, Paris are the favourites because they've won in Arsenal by 1-0. But tonight, I just don't know. We have the Ghanaian international Thomas Partey coming back for Arsenal, which is very, very good for the Gunners. Let's just see how this game plays. I can't predict, to be honest. I really cannot.
Thank you, Sankula. We keep following. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Falou So and Omundanyogo for the technical support. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is WADR's Gender Fletcher program 50-50 with Nadi Titi. And by 1 p.m., expect the second edition of our News in French and Foshevu with Alpha Abubakar. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM